Hey Raj, I want to appreciate you for showing up today, and for all our viewers. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, and kind of the state of the market, so to speak. We're not talking stocks, we're not talking that type of market. We're more talking about businesses and kind of looking next, 30, 60, 90 days to maybe even the next couple of years. So I kind of want to dive into that. So for everyone who doesn't know, Raj Doraisamy is a leader over at the Healthy Business Bureau, which if you want to talk a little bit about.
The Healthy Business Bureau is actually this coalition of businesses, and it's a resource for businesses to help business leaders provide a response for their employees as they lead their employees through this time period where we've got a big disruption. So all the way from how to navigate remote work, how to inform your employees about what's healthy. And so that's what the Healthy Business Bureau is. And then I also have a software development company, RD Media Labs, which we create apps, do digital marketing. So happy to be here with you, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
We're all digital people here.
Yeah.
So I know I've worked with Raj a lot, as you probably have seen in some other videos. So we'll dive right into a little bit about COVID-19.
So what is the state of the market, Dylan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So really, when I think about currently what's going on, obviously a lot of people are concerned. A lot of businesses owners, as you know, are very concerned right now with kind of what's been going on. And, there's a lot of uncertainty that needs to get cleared up. So obviously there's one side of that, and a lot of business owners have started to constrict. And while it's completely understandable, people selling off in the stock market, constriction, business owners getting a little bit tighter, people concerned over what's the economy going to do, what is going to be the impact of the COVID-19. And so, going along with that, what are the benefits to constricting versus is it right to constrict in a time like now? So just a little bit questioning you, what are your thoughts on COVID-19 being the leader of the Healthy Business Bureau and the shifts?
It's a great question. So you were sharing with me, Dylan, before the broadcast, like you said, businesses are kind of looking to constrict, like you said. And what we mean by that is they're looking to maybe pull back a little bit because they're not sure what will happen. But the other piece of what you said was that's really, there's an opportunity here, isn't there? Yeah. And where's the opportunity that you see here for business leaders that can kind of read this and take advantage of providing a service in a more intelligent way? Where's the opportunity?
So there's a couple areas, and the first one that kind of comes up, I know was something you're promoting actively, which is remote working. And so with that, a lot of business nowadays, they can work from a computer. You look back decades and decades ago, it was very normal for someone to grow up, get into a good, safe, secure job for 30 years and retire there. And they wouldn't need to have to worry about getting laid off. But obviously over the last decade or so, we've noticed that obviously isn't the case nowadays. People have to be more specialized skills, but also they have to be adaptable. You can't expect, someone getting into the workforce isn't necessarily always going to be with the same company. They're going to be with multiple different companies, which is why I think it's becoming more important for business to understand the adaptability of technology, both being digital guys, that technology has a lot of benefits in terms of you become specialized in something. You don't always have to be in one place to get a task done. So that's kind of what I would say in terms of, how things have shifts with opportunities in terms of remote working and kind of the change in the workforce.
What are some examples of areas of specialization that you're talking about?
So areas of specialization, of course, if it can be done on a computer, then in essence it can be a specialization. So obviously you always have to look what do people want, what are people looking for. So obviously if I needed a video edit, if I needed this video edited, I could find someone, they do it from their house. We don't even have to meet. What I mean by we don't have to meet in person. We don't even have to link up and exchange things. We can literally use the internet and get that whole process done to even delivering the video out to the viewers, as we'll do here. We'll put it out on the cloud, so to speak. So that's one example. Obviously, there's a variety of professions, marketing, obviously being digital marketing, you doing as well as some marketing digitally. All of that can be done like online. That's a specialization. But it doesn't even just have to be with just business. I mean, there's a lot of, other areas that communication-wise that can be done through the digital space for a variety of industries.
So Dylan, what are some options for businesses with employees?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for businesses with employees, there's a lot of different options. So number one, obviously we kind of touched on a little bit with like remote working being a very viable option that people can go into. But another part of that is specialty skills being even more so than before. So, a lot of times people talk about, we want specialized people, and like that's been here, it's for the last decade or so, but it's even more now. So looking back like into the past, it used to be where someone would get hired for a job and potentially work there for their entire life. 30 years, retire there. But ever since the last market crash, so to speak, when that happened, and maybe even a little bit before it, but people were getting laid off because of that. And now that idea of staying with a company really hit home with a lot of people, to where now they're realizing, I'm not necessarily safe with the same company for the rest of my days. And it's understandable from like a business perspective, where right now a lot of businesses are feeling it. They're getting in constriction mode. They're thinking, what do I cut? Do I cut people? Do I cut expenses? Do I cut costs? What do I have to do to keep the business alive and keep the business thriving? But I think a lot of times right now people are thinking, how do I keep the business alive? So that's kind of like one option is remote working, but also finding people with specialized skills. So a lot of times, whether you're looking outside of the organization, for example, like Fiverr, there's a lot of things where you can get little tasks done that you may not want to put your full-time employees through. You can get that, outsource it, pay someone else to finish that task for you, and you kind of go on to your day-to-day activities. So that's one solution. There's also hiring agencies that will take control of a specific part of your business. So for example, I know you do a lot of like web design. They don't necessarily need to hire a web developer. They can come right to you with RD Media Labs and be like, hey, this is what I want done. You'll do it for them. Or same with, in my situation, advertising online, Facebook, Instagram advertising, for example. I can run that. Someone who's got expertise in that area who can do it better than most people you would hire, and you're just paying one fee because I'm doing it for a bunch of other people already. So there's a lot of ways businesses can leverage this to their benefit, getting good results from it, but also protecting the people that they do have in those core capabilities as well. So those are a couple different things. I know I'm getting a little all over the place.
That makes sense. No, it makes sense because really it makes sense for businesses to find specialists.
Yeah, exactly.
In different areas, because overall then the business gets a lot more for their dollar, and they get a higher quality product when they use a specialist like that. Now, how do you perceive, how do you perceive the results of all of this on businesses moving forward?
Yeah, so right now, this has kind of been, in a way, a wake-up call in terms of the capabilities of, hey, I might have to not have my employees here for 2 weeks. We might have to shut our doors for 2 weeks. This isn't just like may not just be a temporary thing. It could even be longer. So I think that's where a lot of the concerns come from. And so to kind of answer your question, looking long term, the next couple years, I think this is going to kind of be a push, a force towards the more specialization positions, towards the outsourcing of things that once maybe were done in-house, and then also, getting people used to working away from an office. I think we're going to see a little bit more of a blend of remote working to actually in-office working. So on the employee side of things, like that's what I perceive to be the change. But another thing that I want to really hit on is the idea of, is it time to constrict, or is it time to think about expansion? And I briefly mentioned this, but anytime something like this happens, it's natural as human beings to fear, to feel a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of concern, and to ask yourselves, what do I do? And the natural response is, I need to conserve, I need to protect, I need to like huddle up in a ball and just protect myself in this bubble, so to speak, from anything that could influence my business. But the problem with that is when you're doing that, your customers aren't coming to you necessarily as at the rate they were before, because they're concerned too. But eventually the bubble wears off. Eventually things start getting back again. And in that time that you were sitting there restricted and constricting, you were probably still losing money. You were probably still not gaining any market share. Your business wasn't growing, so to speak, unless you were going for expansion mindset. So instead of taking this time to fear and hunker down, take it as an opportunity. Is how can we grow with this? But then how can we expand and actually grow our market share? Because we know the competitors are constricting. So if this is the time we can go out there and be like, we've got your back. Don't worry, COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever it might be, stock market's going down, all these things happening. This could be an opportunity where you're saying, I'm going to be the leader right now. I'm going to take control, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that X business has got it for you. We'll take care of this for you, and also allowing you to grow. So when the economy does get better, when this passes over, now you're ahead of the game because you took the time to take an expansion mindset versus a constriction mindset when things were getting a little rough and a little hectic, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if a business owner is watching this and they're thinking, gosh, I've seen the way larger companies are advertising on Facebook, as an example. That's the one you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I really don't know how to even go about. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
What would you suggest that business owner do? Because your company provides that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, and a lot of it comes down to, okay, there's a couple different things that you got to consider if you were thinking, like, obviously big companies are always advertising on every platform, but for a smaller business is kind of thinking, I'm cutting expenses, why would I advertise now? And there's a couple different strategies and reasons you would do that. Specifically right now with COVID-19, what are people doing? If they're getting 2 weeks working from home, or even the NBA, the NHL, all these things are canceled, what are people doing now? They're looking for something to consume their mind with because there's so much going on. They're watching the news, they're scrolling on their Facebook news feed. So people are putting more attention and more time into these platforms right now. That's a fact. People are spending more time. So if you're a business owner thinking about this, right now you can take the stand to be like, hey, at this company, we've got your back. We're taking protective measures. That's one area that you can do it with. So for example, videos is a great way to do that. You could just simply do it in a why by messaging, like, hey,
taking a video ad of your company or yourself.
Of expressing a certain intent of, for example, there's some automotive clients that, of course, I was working with, and they were mentioning that, like, they were concerned about it and they wanted to just stop. But I was thinking, people are going to buy cars after this all passes over. So what are you going to do to kind of get their interest up and keep them engaged in the time that they're scrolling on Facebook? There's so many different strategies that businesses can use on these platforms in and of itself. And that's kind of what I mean by expansion too, is that they can leverage this, not necessarily taking advantage of something that's difficult, but showing people, leading people, because people want to listen to someone and they want someone that's going to actually understand what they're going through, but also is being there in a time when they were feeling so constricted and they saw X business here, doing this for them. So.
You mentioned earlier something called expansion mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can you say more about that?
Yeah, so expansion mindset is more of the idea of looking, not how do I necessarily benefit, but in a way, it's how do I take control to the point where how can I use this to the business's benefit. And sometimes what seems like a business benefit is constricting, instead of, hey, maybe I should help out people, hire someone additional to help us push to this next level. Maybe it means taking an extra risky step. That's an expansion mindset. It doesn't mean it's just gambling and just going all in and just being like, I'm just going to hire, but like calculated, taking risks for the right reasons, that you have a end goal in mind, and you're going to take those risks as a business to actually get yourself gain more market share. Obviously, you have a positive ROI at the end of the day, but like take a little bit of risk is not a bad thing if it's done in the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all great businesses have had to take risks.
So Dylan, what does online advertising have to do with businesses and winning market share versus constricting?
Yeah, so again, going into that expansion mindset, taking market share is, in essence, most businesses are cutting. So if most businesses are cutting, this is where you can go out and try and take that. Because at the end of the day, the markets are even though the markets might be down, so to speak, people are still out there looking for services. People are still out there looking for whatever they're looking for, whatever your business does, people are still out there looking for it. It's just they may not be at the level they were before, or maybe they're in a different mindset of looking into it. And that's kind of where other businesses may be cutting costs and not advertising. Now you come in and say, hey, I'm the guy now. Like, this is us now. Like, this X company is now the place to go to. So that's kind of the idea of taking market share by using expansion versus constriction.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, thanks very much for having me on and
thank
for
you,